Hi, Mahar.
Hi, Sarvi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just getting used to, actually, now I am used to it, just being home all the time and using this time to the best possible way that I can.
Yeah. And I think you've been really doing that. Mahar is really active on social media, such amazing, inspiring content. So thank you for all of that. I know I get a lot of inspiration from your content.
That's so kind.
Perfect. So, Mehar, we talked briefly about these interview series that I started in March. So, I released the first one with one of my friends, Pamela, on International Women's Day. And my goal is to really interview the inspiring women. And I really wanted to reach out to everyone in my network and just have a conversation around some of the topics that, through surveys I've received from a lot of the women in my network, and hopefully it can be of some value to people around us. And I think this is really the best time, as you said, to really make the most out of the free time that we have because of everything that is happening. So the topic that I wanted to talk to you today about and get your perspective is around our experiences and lesson learned from both of us left our home country. You left India, I left Tehran, Iran. I moved to Canada, you moved to UK. And what that experience has been and what did we learn and what were the challenges. And the reason that this topic came to my mind is the past, I would say, year and a half, 2 years, I started to get a bit more involved, mostly within the Toronto community, in some of the mentorship programs that are here, specifically in women in technology groups. And it's interesting, one of the main questions and the topics that would come up throughout all of these after each of the speaking events that were there was around, hey, I recently moved to Canada. I don't know how to navigate the job market. I don't know how to network. Networking is not something that is common in my culture. I feel very uncomfortable. Or I want to get into this market, this specific market. I want to get into VC or get into technology, and I don't know how to do it. How did you navigate when you first moved to Canada? And I started thinking about it 20 years ago when I moved here. And these were all the questions that I had. And sometimes I was lucky enough to have someone around me to support and help me and answer my questions. And a lot of times I didn't really have anyone. And I had to just, through trial and error and learning what is the right way. So you immediately came to my mind. We are both alumni of Imperial College of London. We did our MBA. When I was applying, I just found you on LinkedIn. I was literally went on LinkedIn and started searching. And I think I reached out to 10 people. 3 people came back to me with, hey, we're willing to help you. You were one of them. And I instantly connected with you. And when I think about why I instantly connected with you is because, A, you were so positive and willing to help, but also we have a similar background in some sense and similar experiences that created connection for me. So walk us through a little bit more about, for those actually don't know, about your experience when you moved and what were some of the challenges.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sarvi, for having me once again. And I think what you're doing is so amazing. It's just about reaching out and helping people, even if it's in the smallest way that we can. You
Yeah.
never know who it could help. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. So I'm really grateful that we met and we connected.
Thank you.
So to start with, I am from New Delhi, India. I've lived there almost all my life. I moved to London in 2016. And at that time, when I was moving abroad, it was just very exciting. But I was just looking at the positives of moving abroad and not thinking of the challenges that it would come with. And I think those are the things that you learn on your journey and along the way. And like you said, I think there are a lot of ups and downs to moving and living abroad. And you also sort of have to navigate and learn by yourself and just meet people, network, and get to know the ways of working in a brand new country. And it is challenging, but it's also very rewarding. And that's how I feel my journey has been. So I'm actually, like I said, I'm from New Delhi and I pursued the chartered accountancy degree. And that course was very, it was just a lot of self-study. There wasn't any college that I went to. It was all online classes or going to these classes where I didn't make many friends. So I always craved for that university experience. So I think when I was 21 or 22, I convinced my parents that I wanted to go abroad to pursue an MBA. And when I cleared my exams in 2015, I started making applications and I applied to, I think, 5 or 6 countries around the world. But London was always my dream. I think I always had this gut feeling within me that I wanted to live and work in London someday. So I applied to Imperial College and I got in, and I think that was the best day of my life. And my parents always supported my dreams, and I think it's really important to have that kind of family support. When you have big dreams for yourself, you need that sort of push and motivation from your family. So I'm really, really blessed that way. That my parents supported my decision, and then I moved. When I moved here, like you said, it was a brand new experience for me because I hadn't had any kind of this very participative and practical learning experience. Whatever I had previously was all theoretical and learning everything by myself and going and giving these very tough exams. So the whole experience was so overwhelming because it was classes and then events that happened after the classes, and also things I did on the side by myself. Like I reached out to entrepreneurs because I wanted to do internships with them, and those are the skills that I picked up from people in the university. And also I started following a lot of inspirational people who were very motivational and sort of guided. They were like virtual mentors for me, and then I sort of paved my own way. And then once the degree was over, and last year also after I got married, I was again working on my applications to get a job. And again, it was through LinkedIn and connecting with people is how I actually landed my job. And it's unbelievable how the world works. I think it's been a very overwhelming experience, but people have been very, very supportive and very helpful.
That's amazing. And congratulations to you. I mean, I've been following your journey the past, I would say, 2 years, and I always love seeing all of your successes and how you're helping everyone else around you as well, which is amazing. Talk to me a little bit more about the challenging times. I think now we see all of the greatness that Mehari is and all of your success, but you touched on it briefly. Like, what were some of, I would say, the main challenges? Like, it's your first month move to London. Imperial College is not an easy school. I mean, I spent 2 years there as well. So even the cultural differences and all of that, how did you navigate it?
Well, it was challenging, but I would say that luckily in India, English is sort of like a first language for us. So all our education is in English. So that part, I didn't find it to be very challenging. Like I understood everything. I understood the text. I could communicate easily. It was just, I had to get used to how every country has their typical phrases, or their culture is a little different, and so that took a little bit getting used to. But I want to give the British people a huge amount of credit because they're so polite and they're so genuinely nice. They may not come across as very warm, but they'll never be rude to you. So I have never in the last 4 years had any type of racism kind of experiences. They've all been very welcoming to me. So I think that's been a blessing also. Some of the challenges, I think, because in India I lived with my parents and my family. Coming here and doing everything by myself, whether it was paying bills, whether it was cooking, cleaning, getting used to. So I lived in a studio by myself when I was at Imperial, and that's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to live alone by myself before I stepped into the next phase of my life, and I had never done that. I had always been in a very crowded home. I mean, not crowded, but I was always surrounded by loved ones. So I think that the whole challenge of living by myself, living alone, taking care of myself was a little bit harsh sometimes. I remember that I was coming back home from school one day from Imperial, and I picked up some groceries on the way home, and I was carrying like all these groceries and my books and my laptop, and I just tripped on the street, and I felt really badly. And then I came home, there was nobody to even, like clean my bruise or ask me how I was. So those things were challenging, like coming back to an empty apartment and not having somebody who looks after you. But you got to look after yourself. And that's what I learned. I think that 1.5 years really, really taught me to discover myself and go on that journey by myself.
Yeah, definitely. That's living alone, a lot of alone time in a different country, different continent. I think that is one of, like, you do a lot of self-discovery and you really get to know yourself on a different level. A question I have for you is, did you ever find it difficult to ask for help? Because I think it takes also a lot of power and courage sometimes to ask for help, whether it's in school, whether it's for through networking. I know cultures can be also very different in terms of, I know, let's say for myself, if I would have been stayed in my birth country, the idea of networking would have been reaching out to my dad's network and immediately getting a job, versus here it's just everything from scratch. I had to build my own network. How was your experience?
I agree with you 110%, because I think we also come from a culture where when you're at work, somebody gives you something to do, you have to go and get it done. If you ask questions, you sometimes come across as stupid. Whereas it's not the case like that over here. And one of my feedback points at work in the past 1 year has been that I don't ask enough questions and I don't gain clarity of what is required to be done, and I don't ask for support and help. And I've actually tried to really change myself, and I go to my seniors, I catch up with my senior managers, directors now very regularly, and ask for regular feedback and ask them and tell them where I'm struggling and how they can help me. But at university, at Imperial, I think I learned a lot from my one-on-one career coach. She was a big mentor to me. She told me to reach out to people on LinkedIn, and I think one of the best things I learned during school was how LinkedIn can be used in unimaginable ways. And I used to message, like you, I messaged like 10 to 12 people a week, and most of them got back. And that's how I grew my network. I met people for coffee. I just had a 15-minute conversation with them on the phone. And I think those things I learned when I moved here, because like similarly to your story, I've always relied on my parents to give me that help and that support and that mentorship. So that's something new that I learned in the last few years.
Yeah. LinkedIn is, I'm still amazed of, like, it's one of my favorite social media platforms. It's one that I consistently use. I get so much value out of it. And I guess a tip for everyone, this really is the best time to reach out to anyone on LinkedIn. Everyone has a lot more free time than before. So I'm sure everyone is willing to do a Zoom call and just share their experience. And everyone wants to talk about their experience, their background, their wins, and all of that. I think that's always a good way to start.
Definitely. People love talking about themselves. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about your experience, some of the challenges. Out of now, you look back after a couple of years, what are some of, I would say, your lessons learned maybe that you want to share with everyone?
Lessons learned moving abroad, living by myself.
Yeah, from this experience, right? From the moment that you decided, then you moved here to London, navigated your way. Like, what are some of the things that you learned?
Okay, I think some of the things I learned, except, being able to take care of myself, becoming the strong, independent woman. Other than that, I think this time when you move away from home really makes you realize who are your true friends and people who mean a lot to you. They will stay in your life no matter where you move in the world. So actually become closer to some of my friends back home. We talk every week. We're constantly texting each other. I think that feeling of being connected to my parents and my family is more valuable. So I think one of the lessons that I learned is communication is very important when you're living alone by yourself or away from your family. You have to keep communicating and staying in touch. You can't just move abroad and live in a bubble. That's not how it should work. So my recommendation to anybody moving abroad, never forget where you come from, and really, really be there for the people who supported you and your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a definitely good thing to always remember. And I think like Toronto is same as London. It's very multicultural, very welcoming to people from all over the world. And I think I would say one of the reasons that there is so much innovation in these cities is because of the different perspectives that every person from their culture to bring to these places. Such a huge amount of innovation and technology within the startup community. And I like your point around don't forget where you come from, both on the personal level and even in terms of like more professional level, you're thinking about it, because the experiences that you had, let's say in India, that is going to give you a completely different way of thinking that now you're bringing that to your company or any initiative that you start or you're part of it.
Definitely, I agree with you. You only move on to the next step because of the steps you've already climbed.
Yep.
So I got my current job because I slogged my ass off at KPMG for 5 years in New Delhi. So never undervalue whatever you've done, because later in life it's always going to help you. It's always going to benefit you in some way or the other.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess before we go into the questions, because I know we have a number of people from different places around the world, and I would like to give them time to ask questions. Let's end our conversation with something that I know you and I are both passionate about, and I know through your content, you're always talking about the concept of gratitude. I try to be more mindful of that, especially recently, and just always talk about what is it that I'm grateful for. So if you think about your story we heard your story of immigrating to London, what are some of the things that you're grateful from that experience?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think one of the things that you sometimes when you move abroad and you're living by yourself away from home is that you have this fear of missing out of what's going on at home or with your loved ones. You're going to miss special occasions and you're going to feel guilty about it. But you sort of have to remember why you're here. You're here for a reason. So I think that mindset, that positive mindset comes with gratitude. You have to remember that you are here for a reason and then look at it in a positive way. So from this whole experience, I'm so grateful to be living in a country that is so welcoming. I'm learning so many new things. I'm constantly trying to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I also am grateful for the support that I have back home, and I have a place that I can still call home. And if at all something goes really badly, I know I can always go back and it will still be home. It will always be home. So I'm really grateful for the experiences, for living in this amazing city, and for the experience that I had.
Yeah, and I would say like we're lucky, right? We have two homes. That's I think the best thing that we have. I would say like just to do a wrap up, like what I'm grateful for is really all of the opportunities that I got through in general Canada, and I would say like even UK. Like I feel equally, even though I spent significantly less time in London, that London in some way it feels like home, and I feel some connection with it, which is always interesting because I never really fully lived there. But I think the amount of opportunities that I got throughout all of these years, for me it's been 20 years that I'm living here, so this really is home. I live most of my life here now, but all of those opportunities and everyone that gave me a chance. And I think like getting a platform, right? I think that's one thing that I don't know if it's part of the becoming older, but I feel now even more responsible that there are so many people gave me an opportunity and chance and helped me and mentored me. And now it is the time for me to give back and do something for the people that were in similar position as us maybe 20 years ago, a couple of years ago when we first moved here. And I think both of us are so lucky that we live in countries and in cities that are so, again, diverse, and they welcome that diversity so much. So I think the least we can do is to find a way to give back. So hopefully a conversation like this will have some value for someone in similar situation as us.
Yes, I completely agree. And also, like when you move to a city that is so diverse, you can always connect with people who are from your own hometown. So there's always like that whole cultural
Yeah.
and you sort of start valuing your culture back home. And also, I think you sort of develop two personalities when you're an immigrant. So I have like this one pseudo British side and then one very like Delhi girl side. I can very easily flip back and forth between those two. And yeah, I'm really grateful for all the options.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, let's see if there are any questions that we can answer. Okay. People want to ask question now. This is a good time. If you want to go on mute and have your video, please feel free to do so. And while everyone are typing their questions, we will release this video through our social media. I will include Mehar's Instagram handle. She has amazing content that she posts and great videos. And what I need from everyone is please give us feedback either through Mehar or myself. What is it that you got out of this conversation? And Mehar raised a really good point. We're curious why you decided to join.
Yeah,